I think a good place to start is about your book that you're writing, the Bitcoin
Yeah,
Thesis. Uh, what got you to write a book about Bitcoin?
good question. Yeah, it's been about 2 years now since I embarked on that adventure, and it's coming to a close now, which is a little bit bittersweet. But what got me started on it was I was thinking about running an investment fund at the time centered around Bitcoin. And as I was 21-year-old with little to no experience in the space, I wanted to present potential investors with some proof of work that I actually understood what I was talking about, at least from a Bitcoin perspective. So the idea was to write a full thesis, hence the Bitcoin thesis, about Bitcoin, pretty much A to Z, to present them with proof of work and have them be able to say, okay, this guy has a deep and thorough understanding of what the entire investment fund is based around. Long story short, the investment fund didn't work out for different reasons, and I'm glad it didn't because it allowed me to pour more energy into the book, which it ended up becoming a book and took on a life of its own to where, I don't know, it's coming up on 500 pages now. I've written content and it'll
Wow.
get trimmed down into the second and third drafts. But yeah, it's taken on a life of its own, and it's been such a great way for me to learn about Bitcoin and teach myself about it across so many different concepts within and around Bitcoin because it's so deep. And part of the idea of the book is that there's 21 chapters, and you can connect the dots there. And each chapter could be a book of its own. So
Wow.
there's a lot to distill down into each chapter, but the book carries a lot of weight in that sense as well, which I again I've really enjoyed writing and researching.
Yeah, I imagine it's bittersweet because
Yeah,
it's probably both frustrating and fun to write the book.
absolutely.
Um, yeah, it's funny that um, there are so many Bitcoin books now. I saw you posted on your X that a Bitcoin book that came out in different times, starting in 2014, and what the price of Bitcoin was. It's fascinating that your book's going to end up there somewhere,
Yeah,
and obviously that list is just going to keep growing. I guess there's so many people that are opening their eyes, and as you're saying, like diving into that rabbit hole is truly such a big rabbit hole because that's the experience that I had when I first started studying, reading books. The more I understood, the more I realized I could possibly read about and understand because there's so many different intricate parts of it that are valuable and that are important to know to fully understand what is actually going on. I'm not saying that I've reached that point. I'm just saying
hmm
there are many parts to it, and
hmm
it just makes sense because it's such a new. Well, it's. I think it's gonna eventually get the I don't know stamp or status of one of the most important inventions of our time.
yeah, I would agree, and I would already give it that stamp personally, and even the effects that it's had for me personally on an individually sovereign level and others around me has been massive. And I would assert that many Bitcoiners would attest to the same thing. And I think the rabbit
Yeah,
hole is so deep on one hand because it's so novel, but also because the money in Bitcoin is so interconnected to
yeah,
so many different things. And I was thinking about it this morning actually of how fascinating it is to me that so many people will get into Bitcoin and then they essentially have no choice but to start a podcast about it or start reading 15 books or to start writing their own book or producing content of their own. It's like the the brilliance and the significance and the magnificence of Bitcoin is almost so overwhelming that people have no choice but to pour it out of themselves as they're taking it in. And that's certainly been the case for me.
yeah, yeah. I like that more and more people are waking up to it. I wanted to talk to you about one of the aspects of Bitcoin that so many people pay attention to. And after that, I read Jeff Booth's book, The Price of Tomorrow. I started playing with the idea that paying too much attention and giving too much importance to the to the price of Bitcoin, it's not a good place to put my attention. What's your
Mhm.
take on that?
I'm more in that camp than not. I rarely check the Bitcoin price. I don't. Part of me just doesn't even care about it, and it's like I see all these posts when I get on the X of Bitcoin drops to 111,000, and it's like if you're in 2050 or even 2035, much less 2100 and beyond, you're looking at these posts and you're just laughing at the ridiculousness of people talking about Bitcoin's price in the US dollar swinging by a couple of thousand pieces of
Yeah,
paper.
yeah,
It's like it's going up and period. And it will
yeah,
continue to go up. And I think part of the beauty of Bitcoin is that I don't have to stress about the market. I don't have to stress about its price because I understand the underlying fundamentals that lead to its purchasing power appreciating over time, which allows me to focus on my craft, to write a book, to hop on podcasts, to do other things that I
yeah,
enjoy and that excite me and that bring value to my life. Whereas in the US dollar world, everyone has to become a hedge fund manager and add risk onto their money just to have a chance of maintaining its value. And that's it's not a fruitful way to live.
yeah. So I guess it's a good time to ask about. I don't want to dive too deep because it's so. I don't know. If some of it feels so toxic and unserious, but the knots and core debate. What
Mm-hmm.
side of that are you on?
I'm not too particular about any one side. On one hand, I haven't done a ton of research into it, so I don't think I have a level of understanding to make a super well informed opinion about it. But also, I'm a believer in the market and the free market, and I believe that
Yeah,
it'll work itself out one way or the other, one way or
yeah.
the
See,
other, as has happened with Bitcoin forks in the past. You've seen BSV and Bitcoin Cash and others just completely fall by the wayside because the market doesn't actually value them. So I have a trust and a faith in the market in deciphering what's actually valuable and what the people actually want because the people will actually choose what they want, especially in a permissionless system such as Bitcoin. So I think it'll work itself out. And it's a little bit of a privileged take, but because I don't have the full understanding of it right now, I don't want to attach myself onto
yeah,
one
that's
side or
fair.
the other. Yeah.
That's totally fair. I appreciate your response.
Mm-hmm.
So, in one word, what's Bitcoin's most underrated trait?
I think time is the
I guess,
most underrated trait. I think you
yeah,
mentioned the
because
word
you're in a way buying yourself time in the future.
constantly. Yeah, it's constantly working for you and constantly essentially making money for you. And really, it's giving you time and energy. And you mentioned the word attention. And I think time is our most valuable asset, but also attention is. And those two
Yeah,
things go
for
hand
sure.
in hand because you can have a lot of time, but where are you actually putting your attention? If I'm putting my attention on Bitcoin's price, you know, checking it once every 30 minutes, I'm losing a little bit of my energy to something that perhaps may not be the most
Yeah,
significant thing in my life. So I think it's time is the most underrated aspect of it. One, in that Bitcoin created a new dimension of time in cyberspace, which I think is fascinating on its own. But secondly, in that it gives us back our own time at an increasing rate. And that's what I
yeah.
think anybody truly wants is an abundance of time to be able to go and do the things that they want to do, spend the time with family, friends, and hobbies and interests that brings them love in life.
What's the toughest pill for a new Bitcoiner to swallow?
That the system they live in is fundamentally broken and runs on complete fraud. And pretty much the system they grew up in is entirely fraudulent.
That's a good segue to the next question, which is Fiat's worst lie in one sentence.
Fiat's worst lie is that you need inflation. and that you need to have your time and energy and money's value stolen from you in order for there to be a high functioning economy. This is really just the excuse for there to be centralized money controllers that can print and debase your money at will, so they're allowed to spend and pay for whatever they want and ultimately enrich their pockets and their closest counterparts as well. And then it gives them access to running a Ponzi scheme on a governmental level, and yeah, just basically defrauding the vast majority of the populace and giving them the ability to print money at will, which is an ultimate god tier power.
Yeah, that is Mr. Svanholm's answer to that question as well.
Nice.
What are your two sats take on the Bitcoin reserve companies?
Two sets take. I like that. I think ultimately every company will be a Bitcoin reserve company. I think
Hmm.
it's interesting that we call them Bitcoin reserve companies. We don't call companies that hold USD in reserve USD
Hmm.
reserve companies. I don't know if that label will stick around forever because everything
Hmm.
will converge upon Bitcoin. I think there's a
Interesting.
lot of speculation with publicly traded companies specifically because the fiat mechanism of money is so fraudulent in its ability to create money out of thin air. So most of these companies are spawning debt instruments out of nothing to give to yield hungry investors, and then they're able to use that money to buy Bitcoin. I don't think that mechanism is going to be lasting forever as well, at which point most of these companies will have to face the reality and the question of how am I actually providing value to the market. And if a company has pretty much solely relied on that fiat mechanism to accrete value to shareholders one way or the other, they're going to lose that, and thus they're not going to be able to provide any more value, and they're going to lose value. They're going to go
Yeah.
bankrupt as a company because I don't want to just hold a company that just holds Bitcoin.
Yeah.
I can't spend your stock. I would have to trade it for Bitcoin at some point to be able to use it. So I think it's there's a bubble forming within Bitcoin basically for the first time, which I think is really interesting. But I think it's ultimately a necessary part of the speculative attack on fiat, the hyper Bitcoinization process, where logically a market that can print money out of thin air essentially to buy the hardest asset on earth is going to do that. And we're seeing
Yeah.
and it'll get extremely extreme in that process and in that unfolding. So I think it's part of the adoption process, but I think most of it is built and based on fluff, which is because it's based on fiat. But it'll come right back down to proof of work in due time.
I like that take. What's one thing Bitcoin can't fix about the world?
Cannot? That's a good question. I don't know, the poles shifting, the geomagnetic field of the Earth. I don't think it can control that. So
Yeah.
that's out of the hands of proof of work in Bitcoin sense.
True. Yeah, I don't think Bitcoin can fix that either. How do you convince a skeptic that Bitcoin isn't just digital tulips?
Bubbles don't form three times and come back a fourth time. They don't pop three times and come back a fourth time. The tulip mania is so over exaggerated historically. It's in my chapter Steel Man in Bitcoin. It's like a 2 to 3 month period where there was the ability for people to just sell contracts on top of each other for tulips, and that's what they did, and they were making money off of it until they realized they didn't actually have the ability to pay these contracts off, and so everyone stopped buying them, and then the tulips collapsed, and they never spread it up as a bubble again. So we're talking about now a 16-year asset that has seen, again, 3 full cycles of huge price movements upwards and crashes in the following years. and then it's
Mm,
revived
yeah.
again to reach all-time highs once more across over $100,000. So I mean, that's even like a surface level answer
Mm,
to it, but that's the gist of it.
yeah. Yeah. If anything, it looks more like the dollar is more like digital tulips.
Yeah, if anything, yeah,
What's
definitely.
what's humanity's? Yeah, you can add to that if you want.
No, I think that's we can leave it there.
Okay. What's humanity's biggest flaw that Bitcoin exposes?
Mm, I think it exposes greed to a high degree, and you're even seeing it with some of these Bitcoin treasury companies. And I think it's partly a product of the fiat disease because and it's paradoxical in a world where money is abundant, there's never enough money to go around because it's constantly losing value. So you're constantly hungry for more, constantly searching out a way to extract money somehow out of the system, which is why you get this exploitative, extractive system and world that sprouts up from fiat, which is largely centered around people manipulating themselves into getting into the higher positions to be closer to the money printer, to
Yeah,
extract from
yeah,
society and to receive money. And it's a very money hungry state, which is akin to greed. And I think Bitcoin ruthlessly exposes those that are greedy that aren't grounded in proof of work. And proof of work to me is honest and valid productivity. And if somebody is doing something based out of greed, I think the entire crypto industry outside of Bitcoin, I think Bitcoin isn't crypto, is greedy. And it's based on greed because all of
yeah,
crypto was born after Bitcoin. And that means
yeah,
that they had seen that Bitcoin had succeeded and had succeeded at a level unseen before monetarily. And in a fiat world where everyone is constantly chasing money, that incentivizes greed. And so people created cryptocurrencies saying, I have the better Bitcoin, I have this new technology, I have this new bell and whistle. But at least partially, there's a level of greed that was baked into that birthing of that cryptocurrency because they were chasing money and chasing the monetary gains that Bitcoin had received. And I think it's an undeniable reality because you can't go back to a time and create a cryptocurrency before Bitcoin had already proven that it could succeed as
yeah,
a cryptographic asset on the market. Bitcoin was the first instance ever of a cryptographic money gaining a single ounce of value by the
yeah,
free market.
yeah,
No cryptographic money had ever done that before. Bitcoin was the first one to prove it. So
yeah. I think
I think it,
it's reasonable to add there that Bitcoin was not the first attempt at digital money.
right. Yes.
There was like 40 years of attempts since the
There had
80s,
been
right?
many attempts by many different people looking to create a cyber cash, and none of them had actually received any value
Yeah,
from the world that had given it a price or a marketable value of any sort. And so
yeah,
Bitcoin was actually the first one to do that, which I think is quite significant. And like I said, that it proved that it could succeed. And then
yeah,
in the years after, it saw massive appreciation in price. And then you started to see these other cryptos trickle onto the scene. And
yeah,
again, I think all of them have this level of greed baked into them because they saw that Bitcoin was making a bunch of money, and the
hmm,
founders, if they could succeed on some level, could also make a bunch of money from it. And
yeah.
that's pretty much
I
what I'm
think
saying.
one thing that's valuable for pre-coiners to also understand is not only did it have a lot of there were a lot of attempts prior to Bitcoin, but one of Satoshi's genius acts, or I guess acts, was
Acts
to
of
add
genius. Yeah.
all those elements together, adding the difficulty adjustment, a little bit of salt and pepper, and you have Bitcoin. So it's I think it's good to know for people that are curious about Bitcoin to know that this is not just something that was coded up by some wacko sitting at his home nobody knows about. Like this was an actual true genius that knew
Mhm.
exactly what he was doing. What's one practical step a pre-coiner can take to start using Bitcoin without feeling overwhelmed by its technical side?
I would explore spending it on some level, even if it's a small Lightning wallet and you just send in 10 sats to somebody. I think when you actually get your hands on it, quote unquote, and feel out what it's like to send and receive a transaction, I think you
Yeah,
start to understand the practicalities of Bitcoin and how it can actually work as money, and you get a feel for it and start to develop some understanding around it, which I think is critical.
yeah, yeah. That's a response I've gotten earlier, and it really, I think it is really valuable, especially if there's somebody like a friend that I interviewed, Dara. He said try to send it to somebody that is across the world, hopefully in a
Hmm.
underdeveloped country, and see how quickly they can turn your dollars into their Bitcoin. It's pretty cool.
It is super cool. I remember pre, might have been mid COVID, like 2020. I remember seeing a video from Jack Mahler's where he was up in his closet in Chicago, and he was on a FaceTime with somebody in El Salvador, and he sent them Bitcoin, and he took a video of him sending the person Bitcoin over the Lightning Network instantly, and it just like I remember it was on the Lightning Network, and he was basing the entire video around the brilliance of the Lightning Network, and I remember it just like expanded my mind, and I didn't even really know what Bitcoin was, but and that was before I'd ever gotten into the Bitcoin rabbit hole. I still remember it to this day because it showed the actual spending and sending of Bitcoin
Yeah,
as a monetary tool
it's
instantly,
just it's
across
just such an
borders.
upgrade from yeah, right. It's just such an upgrade from the system that we're used to today. Like wire transfer something across borders, it's like a freaking nightmare.
Yeah.
Waiting, bureaucracy and layers and waiting again, and then fees. It's like, come on, how did we stop innovating on money? And I guess it makes sense because it's such a powerful tool that those that had it in its in their fists and their control of it wanted to keep it. So it made sense to stop innovation from that perspective. But I mean, for the usability of it globally, it's just a nightmare.
Yeah, it's because it's based on a middleman, and if you need a middleman to approve every transaction, well, some middlemen don't want to work on the weekends, and thus I
Right?
can't send money across borders on the weekend. So
So dumb.
we need a decentralized peer to peer system that is just based on activities and
Yeah,
interests peer to peer without
yeah.
anybody in the middle.
It's groundbreaking.
Yeah.
What's your counter argument for people saying Bitcoin uses too much energy?
I would first start, let's say, why is energy usage bad? And if they say it is
Yeah,
bad, well, then let's turn off all the refrigerators and dishwashers,
yeah,
and let's go back to farming with shovels and pickaxes
yeah,
and hands. Energy usage isn't bad inherently, and when you get into the actual nitty gritty of Bitcoin and the specifics of it, you realize that it's actually the greenest industry in the world, and it incentivizes cheap renewable energy, which
yeah,
allows a lot of these quote unquote cleaner energy sources. They might not be the best currently, such as wind or solar producers, to instead of storing their excess energy or selling it off or turning off their power plants or energy consumers, whatever you want to call it, solar panels, wind farms, they can actually use that excess energy to mine Bitcoin and receive a profit for it, which allows them to make use of stranded energy or what would be stranded or excess energy, and that's one aspect of it. So it's actually expanding the way that we harness and use and deploy energy, which I have a whole chapter about it, and I think that's definitely in the camp of underrated when it comes to Bitcoin, and it's not talked about a ton. But there's some people that do really great work. Daniel Batum, I believe, comes to mind, and other people. Troy Cross, I believe, is another one who's been super awesome for me in terms of understanding the beneficial environmental impacts of Bitcoin.
Yeah, I'm seeing all these flared gas initiatives, natural not natural gas. What was it? Have you heard about gridless?
Mm-mm.
Building power plants on solar and hydropower in Africa, and
Yeah,
powering small villages with it. It's just fascinating. It's so fascinating. And at the same time, they get the heat to dry fruits. They get the profits to rebuild. Like it feels like such a like a win-win is not is too conservative. It's like 3 wins, 4 wins, 5 wins. It's fascinating. I still haven't fully comprehended the full aspect of how useful it can be for small villages across the world that have endless solar power, that has a running river somewhere close. Like
yes,
it's crazy. It's so fucking cool.
it really is, and it's another thing that expands the possibilities and expands your mind about Bitcoin. And I think we're just starting to tap into that, and
Yeah.
that's something that really is going to surprise a lot of people. I think in Bitcoin's ability to harness energy and bring energy to the grid, and to capture excess or stranded energy. And if we're to become a type 1 civilization, which is to harness all of the energy on our star, on our planet, we have to harness all of the energy on our planet. And in order to do that, we need some sort of technology to be able to do that, to be able to access it in some way and bring it, alive in a sense,
Hmm.
and use it for prosperity and technological advancement and development, et cetera, et cetera. And Bitcoin is a grand way to do that. And I think again,
Yeah.
we're just at the precipice of that really exploding as an entire industry and use case across the world.
Yeah. It's interesting to think about how early we are, because when I found it in 2019, I was like, shit, I'm late.
Yeah,
And then the more years pass by, I'm like, wait a minute, how early are we really? Because you look at Joe Nakamoto's videos, and you realize that 90, I don't know, 8% of people that he talks to is like they have no idea what it is, or maybe they've heard of it, but it's like, there's no tangible, real understanding of it. And
yeah,
like most places, we're so early. Like
yeah,
it's 2025. We're 16 years into Bitcoin, and one of the thing that one of the pieces of information that really made me understand how early we are was when I read that it took about 25 years for credit cards and debit cards to become normal for people to use. From the moment they were launched till everybody had it in their pockets was a quarter of a century.
yeah.
And we're not there yet. So it
Mm-hmm.
makes total sense. And when you also see the graph at how quickly the internet was adopted by the masses compared to how quickly Bitcoin is being adopted by the masses, we're also behind. Well, actually ahead of the internet, but
Mm-hmm.
we're still early. It's so early. It's like in internet years. It's like what is it, 1999 or something, 2003. I don't fully remember at what stage we're at, but we're so early.
Yeah, it's right around 1999 to 2000 in internet years, and it
Yeah,
is perhaps moving a little bit faster because technology is an exponential reality. But it's like, how can you be late to something that 100% of the world needs and will converge upon, but only 2% of the world currently understands? You're talking about 98% of people don't really understand it, and you think you're early or you think you're
yeah,
late to it.
yeah,
That
yeah.
doesn't
Well,
that
now I
doesn't
don't think it
track.
anymore, but yeah,
Right. Just like, talking to perhaps my past self or your past self or other people. It's just
yeah,
not
yeah, yeah,
like
yeah.
a realistic. take once you get down into it.
Yeah. In one sentence, what's the most absurd fiat policy you've seen lately?
All of them. I don't know, like the next one.
Yeah, that's fair.
Like,
We can move on. If you could
yeah,
ban one crypto buzzword forever, what would it be?
all of them. The next one. I don't know. When I hear crypto, I cringe. When I hear Web3,
Yeah,
I cringe. Like
yeah. I should change that question a bit. I should reword it.
all of the buzzwords that people use, and yeah, it's just like trying to sell a bell and whistle about something that really isn't that important. Absolute
Yeah,
scarcity is the number one most important thing for a monetary asset, and at best, and Bitcoin is the most secure, absolutely scarce system. And so, at best, any other cryptocurrency is a less secure, absolutely scarce system, and most of them don't even have the clear and transparent monetary policy of Bitcoin. So
yeah.
it's all wash to me.
So you're a dictator for a day. One Bitcoin policy you'd enforce globally.
Mm, you can do what you want. Like I wouldn't mandate anybody to do anything because I believe in the power of the free market. I believe in the power of divine timing. I believe in the power of the people in choosing and having their own sovereignty. So it'd be something related to freedom along the lines of you can do what you want. I'm not going to make you adopt Bitcoin if you don't want to. You'll face the consequences on your own. And I think for people to actually bear the weight of their own decisions, they have to be responsible for their own decisions. And we're starting to move into that world more and more based on individual sovereignty, which gives us more power as an individual, and it also gives us more responsibility. And versus relying on the nanny state of fiat, where we're dependent on them for X, Y, and Z, and at an increasing rate, the power is now returning to us as free and sovereign individuals. And so if you're going to adopt Bitcoin, it's not going to be because I say so. It's going to be because you believe that you want to adopt Bitcoin because you have put in the research and you've presented the market in some way with proof of work. And that's how you'll get the reciprocal benefits from Bitcoin. Those that have done the proof of work and spent the time to understand it, they understand it and they self custody it. They hold on to their Bitcoin. They don't freak out about small price swings. And those that hear about it from somebody else, while it might benefit them, and I've done that before and been happy to share, they might not be as convicted about Bitcoin, which I think that's just part of the process, and it comes with proof of work.
Most benevolent dictator ever.
Good.
What's a commonly held belief or assumption that you think is limiting progress or innovation in Bitcoin?
Mm, I don't know if anything is limiting progress because I think it's going at exactly the rate it's meant to. So
Okay.
I would say there's nothing holding it back because it's all unfolding as it's supposed to.
Hmm. I like that. I know this one is a little bit of a tough question, but if you had the entire world's attention for 30 seconds, what would you say?
That's a really good question. I would read these three posters in front of me. The first one says, "All that is meant to be will find its way to thee." The second one says, "Don't be stressing. Life's a blessing." And the third one says, "Take more chances, dance more dances." And I think those are three awesome reminders that I get to look at. And the first one to me is like the same thing of what I really just said, is that it's all unfolding as it's supposed to, and everything that's meant to find its way to you will find its way to you, and place and assign trust and faith in that process, and it'll all unfold in due time. The middle one is life really is a blessing to be alive and to be able to express and share and experience and ride the roller coaster of life is the ultimate divine journey. And stress and worry really doesn't do anything for us on that journey, and ultimately the physical body will die, like we will pass, and life will be over in that sense. And yeah, just like when you get to that point, it's like, was the stress and worry really worth it? It was like, no, the blessing was what made it worth it. And to honor that blessing, I think is a blessing in and of itself. And then the last one is take more chances, dance more dances, and that's just to take risks and have a bunch of fun and see what's possible and what's out there, and what you can squeeze out of life as much as possible.
Cool. I think that's a beautiful way to wrap it up. I really appreciate your time. Thank you.
Yeah, I really enjoyed it, Felipe. A lot of awesome questions.
Glad to hear. See you soon.
See ya.